To some of the headlines, this is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Decades after torture allegations were first leveled against the former Chicago police commander Jon Burge, a federal jury has found him guilty of lying about torturing prisoners into making confessions. Burge has long been accused of overseeing the systematic torture of more than 100 African-American men. The police department fired him in 1993 for mistreatment of a suspect, but did not press charges. More than a decade later, Cook County prosecutors looked into the torture allegations and found that although there was evidence to show torture had occurred, the statute of limitations had expired. 2 years ago, federal prosecutors finally brought charges against Burge, not for torture, but for lying about it. On Monday afternoon, after a 5-week trial, Jon Burge was found guilty on all counts of perjury and obstruction of justice for lying about the abuse. He could face up to 45 years in prison. Outside the courthouse, the verdict drew a visibly emotional response from one of the men who'd been tortured under Burge, Mark Clements.
I sat in a prison cell and I prayed for this day. Today is a victory for every poor person. I was 16 years old. This is America. 16 years old. What are we going to do about other people who are sitting in those prisons? And I'm sorry if I'm offending anyone, but it's out.
This was Mark Clements' response when reporters asked him how he felt.
Relieved that finally at least one of these people are now going to finally feel the pain. My daughter is 29 years old. I missed all those years with my daughter, sitting in those prison cells for a crime I did not commit. I do not feel sorry for Jon Burge. That's all I have to say.
Mark Clements, one of the dozens of men who were tortured under former Chicago police commander Jon Burge. I'm joined now from Chicago by Flint Taylor, an attorney with the People's Law Office in Chicago, has represented many of the torture victims. Welcome to Democracy Now! Your response to the guilty verdict, Flint Taylor.
It was a wonderful victory for the African-American community and all people here in Chicago who have fought so long and so hard for justice. This fight, as you've mentioned, has gone on for decades. It's a human rights victory that should be understood across the entire country. Because here in Chicago, we've now done something after 30 years of struggle that has not happened anywhere else. And that is, we have a conviction of a torturer, a United States torturer. And that is what the lesson needs to be taken by the Obama administration, who seems so leery to prosecute people like Cheney and people under his command for torture abroad by the U.S. Now we have an example. And actually, it was a Republican prosecutor who did this. So I think that we all across this country should take a lesson from Chicago. But we're also saying, and this struggle has to continue, because there are many men under the command of Jon Burge who are being investigated, who need to be indicted. There are men behind prison bars still who are there because of the torture, by tortured confessions. We need to have a federal statute that says that torture is a crime akin to other human rights violations that has no statute of limitations, so future Burges cannot end up being prosecuted only for perjury and not for the torture that happened. And we need to have full compensation by the city for the men, many of whom have never had or cannot have lawsuits, men who came forward and are the true heroes of this peace and this prosecution, the men who testified against Burge and who were ripped from pillar to post by his lawyer in a very racist way and presented to this jury that it was okay to torture them. It's okay to torture poor black men who are charged with crimes, who may have been in street gangs. And this jury, which only had one African American on it, spoke loudly and said, no, it's not right to torture. Doesn't matter if you're poor and black and a criminal. And I think the message is it doesn't matter if you're a terrorist either, or an alleged terrorist, that we cannot countenance